Paddy Pimblett, UFC's delicate industry plant. Welcome to the channel. My name is MMA Consultant, and in this video we will be reviewing Paddy Pimblett's UFC career in good detail, as well as discuss his path moving forward and his prospects at the lightweight division. Now, quick disclaimer, this video is for entertainment only, and if you enjoy high quality entertaining MMA videos, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Paddy Pimblett's UFC debut takes place on September 4th, 2021, and it is against Luigi Vendramini, the Italian chef. Paddy faces the Italian chef and gets a round 1 KO. Now, this was a decent entry-level fight for Paddy. However, after reviewing the tape, there are multiple red flags that you can identify. First thing first is that this was quite literally a bar fight. If this fight took place outside of a pub in Liverpool, you couldn't tell the difference. Secondly, within 50 seconds of Paddy's UFC debut, he gets cracked badly with a left hook, and this left hook opening is something that you'll see repeated again and again. Another interesting thing was that Paddy goes for a single leg in this fight, and you see some early signs that Paddy's wrestling might not be up to par or acceptable for his skill set within the jiu-jitsu realm, so that he's able to take the fight where he wants to, right? And then the narrative after this fight, of course, was Paddy's got a fucking chin, lad. What a chin on him, you know? So if your chin is getting praise on your debut, clearly that's not a good sign.
What are you on about? A clearly schooled Luigi Vendramini, lad.
So this was Paddy's first opponent. His second opponent would be Rodrigo Vargas, the tailor-made. Paddy faces the tailor-made in March 19th, 2022, and after getting a beautiful hip toss against the cage, he secures the back and gets a round 1 rear naked choke. So Hunter Campbell and Mick Maynard, the UFC matchmakers, they knew what they were doing, and of course they gave a few favorable matchups for Paddy to get his feet wet. Now, the reason why Rodrigo Vargas was a tailor-made matchup is because he loves to grapple, he loves to shoot takedowns, he puts his head in guillotines constantly, and he was taken down by a 21-year-old Rong Zhu prior to this fight. So the UFC matchmakers knew that there will be ample opportunities for Paddy to get his game going. Now, one interesting red flag in this fight was that within the first 15 seconds, Vargas throws a barrage of punches and backs Paddy up against the cage, and Paddy doesn't really have any answers over there and shoots a lazy takedown. The takedown gets stuffed, and he accepts bottom position for a while until he's able to work his back up to the cage. So Paddy gets by his second matchup, and next he faces Jordan Leavitt, the sus gymnast. Paddy Pimblett faces the sus gymnast on July 23rd, 2022, and gets a victory via round 2 rear naked choke. Now in this sequence, he locks up a Darce choke against the cage, uses that to knee the head, get Jordan Leavitt down on the ground, and he actually traps one of Leavitt's arm in the body triangle so that Leavitt only has one arm to defend the rear naked choke. Very beautiful jiu-jitsu on display, and of course he gets Jordan Leavitt out of there. Now, again, a tailor-made matchup for Paddy. If anything, you can argue that the Luigi Vendramini fight was more of a challenge than the second and third fight for Paddy, because they were absolutely tailor-made. Jordan Leavitt has a grappling fetish. He loves to put his head in guillotines, go for takedowns as soon as he gets a chance. he just wants to grapple, right? And the narrative was for the fight week, who's going to teabag who. So pretty much Jordan Leavitt just flew to England with the sole intent to get teabagged, right? So another tailor-made matchup for Paddy in the books. So Paddy's fourth opponent in the UFC would be Jared Gordon, the heroin dealer from Queens. Now he faces the heroin dealer from Queens on December 10th, 2022, and wins via a unanimous robbery decision. Jared Gordon was skilled enough to defeat Paddy, and he got robbed in broad daylight. He won rounds 1 and 3, and in this fight, Paddy was eating left hooks like it's his daily vitamins. Here's some vitamin C, here's some vitamin D, here's some zinc and B12, and there you have it, right? So the public now knew that Paddy's striking defense is lacking. And this is where you get the famous Dana White stare. Dana White looks at that Barstool Weasel and gives him a look like, phew, we fucking dodged a bullet here, son. And the narrative in this fight was Paddy's delusion. He's coming out and saying, that was a fight of the night, lad. And he's expecting bonuses. Later on, he comes out and discloses that he had an ankle injury. And you can see actually where his ankle gives away in round 1. And, you know, there's no reason not to believe him. But later on, we will see that the ankle injury has nothing to do with Paddy's poor striking defense. So he scrapes by here as well via robbery. And his next opponent and his fifth opponent in the UFC is Tony Ferguson, the uncle. Now, we're not going to slander Tony Ferguson, of course. He will be referred to as the uncle here. And Paddy faces the uncle on December 16th, 2023, and wins via unanimous decision. This was a predatory and disgraceful matchmaking by the UFC to give Paddy Pimblett a 40-year-old washed Tony Ferguson on a 6-fight losing streak just to move him up the ladder. And the fight starts as you expect it to. Paddy rocks Tony Ferguson at the end of round 1, but is unable to get him out of there. So Tony survives. They go into round 2, and in round 2, Tony slips throwing a kick, and Paddy gets on top of Tony and banks a bunch of top time. What's interesting here is that in round 3, at the very beginning of round 3, Paddy's cardio gets brutally exposed. Mouth wide open, Paddy looks terrified. He looks as if he's seen Grim Reaper in flesh. And as a huge Tony Ferguson fan, I was jumping up and down in front of the TV, and I could not believe it. I was like, oh my God, of all people, Uncle Tony is fraud checking Paddy, and he's about to get him out of there. That's how dire the situation looked in the beginning of round 3. And of course, as MMA fans, we rarely get feel-good moments. So Paddy goes into autopilot mode, ducks under, gets a takedown, and spends the rest of the round on top of Tony, just heavy breathing, wet blanketing, and getting his unanimous decision. So Paddy, in his 5th UFC fight, scrapes by a 40-year-old washed Uncle Tony off of a 6-fight losing streak. So you're wondering, who does Paddy the Baddy fight next? Well, he faces King Green, the San Bernardino Thug. He faces the San Bernardino Thug on July 27th, 2024, and gets a round 1 triangle choke. So Very interesting fight here because Bobby should be able to defeat Paddy with his skill set, keep the fight standing, and absolutely take him to skew. But what happens here is Paddy goes for a leg kick at the same time Bobby is trying to duck and weave, and he slips into a takedown. It's as if Lucas Tracy teleported into the cage, slipped the banana peel, and Bobby slips. Paddy gets a front headlock position. He's able to transition that into a triangle, and he's able to get the submission on Bobby Green. So an insane series of events lead to Paddy getting the submission in round 1 and getting past Bobby Green. Now, I personally think if you run this fight 10 times, Bobby would win 8 of them by simply keeping the fight standing, styling on Paddy, shit talking, and getting the KO eventually. But of course, in reality, Lucas Tracy has to come in, throw that banana peel, and Paddy is destined to get the submission and move on. So, Paddy Pimblett's next opponent after Bobby Green is Michael Chandler, the Human Sacrifice. He fights the Human Sacrifice on April 12th, 2025, and gets a round 3 ground and pound victory. So, I think this is common knowledge that if any UFC fighter is having a rough time, the UFC matchmakers throw Michael Chandler at them, right? So Justin Gaethje's having a rough time, throw in Michael Chandler. Dustin Poirier's having a rough time, throw in Michael Chandler. We want to elevate Rufy to the next level, throw in Michael Chandler at the White House, right? So his job is to go in there and lose, right? And you can make the argument that he's earning his money and he's worth his weight in gold by giving people and the casuals the illusion that you have a credible win in Michael Chandler. But of course, Paddy had to show some red flags in this fight as well by getting taken down by Michael Chandler in rounds 1 and 2. Now, the more significant takedown was in round 2 because Michael Chandler was able to take the back of Paddy but was unable to get the body triangle. That could be because he doesn't have long enough legs to secure the body triangle, or better yet, he has zero jiu-jitsu ability. So Paddy gets by Michael Chandler as well, and one interesting thing happens on the commentary here is that when Paddy gets the finish, John Anik yells, "Welcome to the land of the elite."
Paddy Pimblett, welcome to the land of the elite.
And you know that land of the elite, right? The land where Makhachev, Volk, Piotr Yan, Merab, and them reside. That's that land of the elite. And Paddy, make yourself at home. What? Should you take your shoes off? Nah, are you crazy, man? Just come in. The ping pong table's right there. There's plenty of snacks and beverages in the kitchen. You'll fit right in, Paddy, don't you worry. So now that Paddy had entered the land of the elite, the matchmakers knew that there's no way back, right? It's time to cash out their industry plant, and we now know that the UFC fully intended to make Paddy Pimblett versus Ilia Topuria for the 155 belt to kick off the Paramount era. The fight was all but done, but unfortunately, Ilia Topuria has to go through a big divorce and is unable to fight Paddy on the very first card of the Paramount era. So the matchmakers take a look at the 155 landscape and try to find an opponent for Paddy who he can beat for an interim title so that this match is preserved for a later date. Well, it turns out that Hunter Campbell, Mick Maynard, Sean Shelby, they had watched one too many Lucas Tracy videos
And I just think he's a goner as soon as it hits the mat. I think that his grappling, his defensive grappling, it is very, very bad.
Yeah!
Paddy Pimblett is going to tip this guy over and submit him easily.
Oh, yeah!
So they decide to put forward Justin Gaethje, the spoiler. Judgment Day arrives for Paddy in the form of Justin Gaethje on January 24th, 2026, and Justin defeats Paddy via a unanimous decision. It only took 80 seconds for the delicate house of cards to fall apart as Justin pushes Paddy against the cage, somewhere he's never had an answer for, and Justin gets a nasty shovel uppercut, connects with Paddy's chin, Paddy goes down, and the rest is just the absolute masterclass sprawl and brawl from the veteran himself, Justin Gaethje. Throughout this fight, Paddy showed that he had made zero improvements in the striking department throughout his UFC career. His game plan was the same game plan as the bar fight with Luigi Vendramini. His answers when getting backed up against the cage were insufficient again, just like the Rodrigo Vargas fight. And he actually tries the same hip toss that he tried against Rodrigo Vargas against Justin Gaethje. He tries the hip toss with 30 seconds left on the clock in a championship fight against the crafty vet Justin Gaethje. Well, guess what, Paddy? These gimmicky moves only work on tomato canisters, and Justin Gaethje is anything but a tomato canister. So this was the end of the road for Paddy Pimblett's title run, at least for the time being. But he did a very good job fooling the masses, making them think that he's a well-rounded martial artist, an elite martial artist, when in fact he's a 1993 one-dimensional jiu-jitsu specialist. And this is what happens. This is what you get for getting pampered and artificially moving up the rankings. The propaganda had reached a point that by the time this fight was announced, people were completely brainwashed and they were giving Justin zero chance to win this fight. Of course, I picked Justin to KO Paddy in the third round when this fight was announced. I even picked the human sacrifice, Michael Chandler, to defeat Paddy, because I could see through the illusion. As we all know, every fairy tale must come to an end, especially artificial ones, and now it's time for Paddy to reset and try to bounce back from this humiliating loss. So, who would be his next opponent? Paddy's next opponent would be Benoit Saint-Denis, the French NPC. Now, Paddy faces the French NPC on July 11th, 2026, and gets a round 1 Darce choke. This fight is very interesting to me, and I've had a lot of time to think about it, because this fight should have been a difficult fight for Paddy, at least on paper. BSD is very durable, is very heavy-handed, has good striking, decent kicks, and BSD goes into the cage. They exchange 2 hooks. BSD throws a body kick, and within 10 seconds, BSD shoots for a takedown and presents his neck on a silver fucking platter to Paddy Pimblett. BSD, within 10 seconds, gives Paddy his only win condition. He could have done anything else in this fight, and he would have substantially increased his chances to win the fight. He could have literally spammed hooks. He could have spammed body kicks and head kicks until the end of times. But no, he immediately shoots for a takedown like an absolute zombie, like a programmed, non-playable character, and absolutely pays for it. Now, credit to Paddy, he pulled off a beautiful submission, absolutely gorgeous. The ability to have the Darce choke and to be able to throw your legs up that high in order to give BSD zero space to be able to get out of it, right? It's very beautiful, but in my opinion, there is no difference between BSD being in the cage or one of Uriah Faber's grappling dummies. It's literally the same thing. So the French NPC goes into the cage and cosplays as one of Uriah Faber's grappling dummies and gives Paddy Pimblett a scenario that he's practiced ever since he was 12. So in my eyes, this is a completely meaningless win because we never got the chance to see if Paddy has improved upon his glaring weaknesses, which is striking defense, striking offense, and wrestling. So now let's take a look at who's Paddy defeated in the UFC, take a look at Paddy Pimblett's wins, and discuss his prospects moving forward in the 155 division. So we have the Italian chef, the tailor-made, the sauce gymnast, the heroin dealer from Queens, the uncle, the San Bernardino thug, the human sacrifice, and the French NPC. These are Paddy Pimblett's wins, and of course there are multiple asterisks that you can point to, specifically in the heroin dealer from Queens fight. This was a clear robbery. The uncle almost got him out of there in round 3. The San Bernardino thug stepped on a banana peel. The human sacrifice doesn't know how to put a body triangle in place to save his life. And the French NPC, who's just a grappling dummy of Uriah Faber, went in to present his neck on a silver platter. So overall, this is extremely underwhelming. Hopefully you'd agree with me. But now let's take a look at Paddy Pimblett's overall statistics. This is what I personally think of Paddy Pimblett's stats, and if you've played FIFA before or any sports game, you're very familiar with these charts. And what you're looking at here is pretty much a 1993 Royce Gracie, right? Extremely well versed in jiu-jitsu, decent cardio, decent strength, very, very good durability. But when it comes to striking offense, maybe I'm even being generous here with a 37. Striking defense is abysmal, and wrestling, which we've seen almost nothing of in the UFC. So this is the situation we're dealing with, and this is why this is a delicate situation for the UFC and for Paddy Pimblett, right? Because what's ahead of him? What's ahead of him is this. These are Paddy Pimblett's options moving forward, because of course you can't go backwards. The star is made to be on the top. The star is useless in the basement. That's something that Chael Sonnen would say, right? And what you have here is just a murderer's row. Do you see Paddy beating Arman? I mean, I think Arman can easily keep the fight standing, and with this basic fundamental striking can take care of Paddy. I think Max Holloway might be the best chance that Paddy has to outmuscle, take down. But even then, I don't believe in Paddy Pimblett's wrestling. Do you? Right? So is he able to replicate the Charles Oliveira system? I doubt it. I think Max will win, although I personally am not that high on Max myself. Charles Oliveira is probably the worst matchup out of all of these four, because he's just as good in jiu-jitsu, and the Muay Thai will easily get Paddy out of there. And last but not least, Ilia Topuria, which is the fight that needs to happen, because the UFC missed out on cashing out on their industry plans, but now they get a renewed chance. Now that Justin Gaethje has defeated Ilia Topuria, you can make the Paddy Pimblett versus Topuria fight, because if you believe that Paddy Pimblett has received the torch from Conor McGregor as UFC's new superstar, you need to cash out immediately, because the situation is not looking good for Paddy when it comes to his skill set, right? So these are the options moving forward, and I just want to briefly also take a look at the UFC lightweight ranking and discuss with you, who do you see Paddy defeating here, right? I think Salkiel defeats him. I think Gamrot can keep it standing and defeat him. I think bloody Tom Nolan would absolutely destroy Paddy. I think Rufy KOs Paddy. Do you believe that Paddy can wrestle and take down Rufy? I have zero faith in Paddy's wrestling. Well, you let me know how you feel about it. I still think even Dan Hooker, the Menace, defeats Paddy Pimblett. Of course, Fiziev would do horrific things to Paddy Pimblett. And last but not least, Rafa Garcia. Guys, I think Rafa Garcia can put a crafty performance, keep it standing, and also defeat Paddy, right? So this is how I feel about this situation. Well, thankfully, the industry plant does not need to look back in the rankings, right? And lastly, I want to discuss with you an imaginary scenario. So let's imagine Paddy's next opponent pulls out and the UFC signs MMA Che to fight Paddy Pimblett. And for those who are unfamiliar with MMA Che, he is the fourth most popular MMA YouTuber. He trains MMA on a daily basis, and most importantly, he trains jiu-jitsu with the Ruotolo brothers, who are absolutely elite when it comes to jiu-jitsu. They're pretty much the best jiu-jitsu players on planet Earth. Additionally, he also trains jiu-jitsu with Jean-Paul Lebosniani, who recently got a really good win against Seok-Young Ko. Che also has a amateur Taekwondo and Muay Thai background, so ultimately he's a well-rounded student of the game. So the beef between Paddy Pimblett and MMA Che begins when Che posts a video criticizing Paddy Pimblett's skill set after the Benoit Saint-Denis fight, and Paddy Pimblett leaves a comment shit-talking, to which MMA Che responds and offers to spar him in Liverpool. And I'll play the clip of the beef for you right now.
What Paddy Pimblett said, he said this. He completely disagreed, right? So, I thought the only reasonable action to take here was to respond with this. And, listen, man, a lot of people are calling me crazy for this. But I think what people aren't really realizing is that Paddy Pimblett's a fraud. Paddy Pimblett, I think his entire career has been fraudulent at this point.
Look.
So with all of that said, how do I think this imaginary fight plays out? Now, this is the statistics that I've assigned to MMA Che, and of course we're removing the UFC jitters and all of that stuff out of the equation. Just in a vacuum, how does this fight play out, right? I would imagine the odds will open up Paddy Pimblett minus 1200, MMA Che plus 800, something like that. And the way I've statistically put together MMA Che's character is, let's imagine he's a 65 overall, with some increased statistics in the jiu-jitsu realm because of course he trains with elite jiu-jitsu artists such as the Ruotolo brothers. So in fact, you can even make the argument that Che has a leg lock game that Paddy might not be familiar with, right? Let's be honest, Paddy is not known to be a leg lock enthusiast. So right off the bat, I know for a fact that MMA Che is going to perform better than BSD, the French NPC. Why? Because I know MMA Che respects the importance of a game plan. He will not go in there and shoot a dry takedown and present his neck on a silver fucking platter. So right off the bat, I think MMA Che has a really good chance. Am I saying that I'm going to pick MMA Che outright to defeat Paddy? No. But can MMA Che keep the fight standing and piece up Paddy? Yes. So you bet your ass I'm gonna be putting some money on MMA Che in this imaginary scenario. There you have it. This was the complete review of Paddy Pimblett's UFC career, his skill set, as well as his prospects moving forward within the lightweight division. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel as more videos like this will be uploaded, and I'll catch you later.